I have a very brief PowerPoint that I want to show you. So let me just make it a little bit bigger. There we go. So I can see now that it's been shared. And so this helps me, this will be available to you, after the session alongside the recording. This is just, to set the scene, on the metadata and also explain what was the reason behind, adding awarded grant data. It's very important to notice that what we are dealing with here is not, up and coming grants or available grant information, available grant fund. This is awarded grant data. So we're looking at the past and we're using that information to help us make decisions for the future, to help us understand how can we better fund a current project, or what is the landscape of funding looking like for idea A, B, and C. So very, very important to be able to not only look at that data, but also connect it to publications that haven't issued thanks to that data. That was an additional piece that we did not have in Web of Science before. And when we survey users, once a year, it was always, one of the most requested types of metadata to add. So this, coupled with the reality that competition for funding and for grants is very, very tough, in that grant success rates is consistently low. Usually, stats really, show us that well under 20% of, funding application are rejected. So usually the success rate is within that window, ranging from just 10, to 20, more hover around 20%. So, not only researchers struggle to fund their work in the that they're conducting, but it's also important for them to access this information to check how their work, stands against, other scientists' work, how their grant proposal, is different from, what was already granted. That can really inform, how and what information you're going to put in your grant proposal. So that translates into making confident decision about your funding strategy. But also looking at what was done previously really helps you demonstrate, your expertise, understand how to inform that, what to write, so that you can demonstrate that impact to funders. Luckily, I see notifications from the chat, pop up in here, and I saw somebody said, one of you wrote, is this already included? Yes, absolutely. So your the grant index is included for everybody in Web of Science, for free. It's a value add that we just wanted to include because we feel that it's important, to connect, all the dots and help you further connecting the publication to grants. So when we go live, in a few minutes, I'm going to show exactly where it is. Obviously, it's not going to be in the Web of Science core collection because it's not peer review data. But if you select, the old database and you scroll down towards the bottom of that drop-down menu, you're going to see grant index. It has got a little icon that says new. So we've launched it early this year, but I'm running this summer series where I'm recapping some of the functionality, the updates, what's coming. So this was definitely a very important piece to go over as part of this series, this learning series. So let's go a little further into the why we added awarded grant data and how it really helps you. So we already said, it helps identify funding priorities because you can search by, you see the metadata, there's a number of fields that are captured, but a typical use case is, searching for a topic and understand not only what published research is out there, but understand also what published research has resulted from that grant. So that's very important, and then obviously understand what's already being funded by an agency. So that is going to help differentiate your proposal to get a better idea. Is this idea viable? Am I trying to pursue something that perhaps has not attracted that many grants? So that really helps. Tune in, hone in on what is likely to be awarded awarded grants and make it stand out, to what's already been awarded, which, as we said, really helps, streamline the research, and understand, what exactly am I looking at in a research landscape. So obviously, you're all users of the Web of Science, so Web of Science is the discovery platform that helps you, map out the landscape of, agencies or, publishers, researchers, topics as well, institutions that publish. That gives you the data that is published from literature, conferences, preprints, thesis and dissertations. All of these items are in the Web of Science. It's not just articles, and as the name indicates, that it's not also just science. Unfortunately, it's called Web of Science, but there's a Science Citation Index, there's a Social Sciences Citation Index, it's Arts and Humanities. So you're really looking at a multidisciplinary platform. And then now, thanks to the Grant Index, you can connect published papers to their original grant that's funding them. So before we go live, let's take a little peek, at how the information is organized, and also what type of metadata you're looking at, how many records. So it's a standalone collection. So standalone, you're gonna find it on a document, and it's called the Grant Index. As you see, it goes back to 1953. It's multidisciplinary too, which is why I was, just highlighting it just now, that, it doesn't matter what subscription your school has. If it's, social science, you have all three flagship indices, NESCI, which is the, high quality, trustworthy journals that are newer and haven't yet reached, high impact for them to qualify and to be promoted to the flagship, which is the main three, right? So Science Citation Index, Social Sciences Citation Index, and Arts and Humanities. ESI is multidisciplinary and is, the journals that are also high quality. So because everything is multidisciplinary, by definition, when you're searching, Web of Science, you're not just pulling grants only for, science or social science. That's also multidisciplinary too. And so how is this, where's the data coming from? I know this is the number one question always. So the data is coming from over 400 funding agencies. We were able to, to add this because, as you know, Pivot RP, which is, a funding database that, we inherited, and we into the Clariot family thanks to Ex Libris and ProQuest, joining the Clariot family 2 years ago. So the addition of, Pivot RP, to the Clariot portfolio has helped, us, grab the data for the awarded grants, which for those of you that are Pivot user, you probably know that in Pivot you have, open funding, and then you have awarded grants. So this that we brought into Web of Science is the awarded grants tab, which translates into over 5.2 million awarded grants, so 5.2 million records, and it's international. It's in excess of 15 countries that you're going to be searching, from which you're going to be searching the data. We mentioned already that it helps with differentiating your projects, looking at previous proposal, previous grants. So here is an example of the metadata that you can expect to find. So this in the screenshot is an actual record, grant record. As you see, we are capturing not only the name associated with that grant, but also the principal investigator, the grant source. You have, the publication, when it was indexed. You can click into the program that it was part of, and pretty much the look and feel, as well as how you're going to search it, is very consistent with what you're already used to in Web of Science. With also knowing that we are capturing grant details. There's a grant number. You're going to see the amount. If there's a start date, end date that is known, most of the time, of course, we have that, start date and end date. But then the beauty of this is that on the right hand side, you'll be able to see the associated documents. And we're going to actually see, let me minimize my window here because I'm seeing myself up here and it's covering the, it's covering what I'm trying to show you. Okay, there we go. I'm actually just going to close that. No. Okay. And close these two. Right. So now we are, here we go. Now we're seeing, you know, this is another example of grant record, same metadata. You can click, it's, you know, going to show you more fields. But what is interesting is that what you're going to see is you're going to see that there are 6 associated publications. And then when you click on 6, you know, it just opens them up at the bottom. That box at the bottom lets you browse them, but even better, you're going to have another link on the top right hand side that helps you view these into your result set in Web of Science. You know, so you're basically extracting a result set of actual papers and publications that you know were the publications associated with grant. So what this gives you, in addition to pivot, for those of you that have pivot, you know, if you don't, you know, you can search in a pivot RP and you'll see that it's part of the Clarivate offering. So that is by definition the platform, you know, for searching funding, open grant as well as awarded grants. And but what you have here, in addition, you know, the value add of searching awarded grants here is that because Web of Science is a literature, you know, searching resource, you have that connection with the publications that ensued, you know, from that grant. So that is really, really powerful. And as you see, the way that those publications that are associated are presented, they're presenting in the style that you already know, that is Web of Science, meaning that for each of these, you know, they're presented alongside, even in this view, even before you go into results set, this is presented with citations to the document. So this, you know, we can say this number 1, you know, publication, you know, published in Applied Clay Science in 2012 was published as a result of this grant. And then it was cited subsequently 26 times, whereas it also itself cited in its bibliography 36, you know, previous references. So this is important that, you know, here nothing changes. And then from here, you can navigate to related records, you know, and you can do everything you already do, you know, track it if you want to know when it gets cited, you know, and so on. So very, very, very important information. I think I have a couple more slides before I actually go live. So yeah, so basically just simply, you know, recapping here, you know, then I'm going to switch live. You know, we said for those of you that join us en route, you know, here that awarded grant data is now part of what you can all search in the Web of Science. You know, it's added already in your account, you know, so go and make sure that it's there, you know, and try to search some data, you know, see how you enjoy it, you know, and if you have any question, you can always contact us. It's been added, you know, to help, you know, develop, you know, better proposal, to help increase your grant, you know, submission and grant approval success. We mentioned some stats earlier that typically only between 10% and 20% of grant proposals are accepted. So it's very, very competitive. And it really is definitely helpful to look at what's been done before to know how to craft, you know, your proposal, but also simply to identify what are the topics that based on the previous year are likely to continue to attract funding, to be awarded funding. Let's go live. I'm going to switch gear in here. So let me click out of my PowerPoint. And just before I switch to the live Web of Science, let me quickly take a look at the chat because I just want to here sort of check that. There we go. I'm just coming up on here. Okay, so it's all good here. Let's go back, and there'll be time, by the way, as I said in the beginning, there'll be time for questions. We're gonna wrap it, you know, I'm in California, so it's 11:45 for me, but we're just gonna, you know, take, you know, the last 5 minutes of the session to go through questions. So this is the landing page on the Web of Science. As you see, you know, you usually lands on the core collection. So when you want to, you have 2 options to search, you know, the grant index. You can either go and directly straight into the grant index, so you're going to go and scroll instead of, doing all databases or going straight into the core collection. You're going to keep scrolling, and then here you're going to find, okay, thank you for you seeing a blank screen. Okay, it's telling me I'm sharing. So let me stop sharing and reshare. Thank you for the heads up. Okay, so let me do that again. So I love the suspense of doing things live, when they don't work always as they're supposed to work. Okay, great. So hopefully now, right, you should be able to see it. Perfect. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much. So here, I was saying this is a landing page. Where to find the grant index, you're going to go here on the documents, but it's probably not going to be in the core collection. So you're going to go past that, scroll down, and there it is, grant index. So this couple of bullet points, to even help you explain if you're doing some internal instruction at your institution, you have some information here. And also remember, actually, I'm going to mention it here. If for those of you that are, conducting sessions for, either faculty or students or simply instruction, what you can do is you can definitely find more information by visiting the question mark that's at the bottom right-hand corner of the page. That is our resource center, and it's very, very helpful to, go straight into a recorded training or even live training. Presumably that's also how you heard about, today's session. But also it has also got a tour, online help. So online help is where, you can go and find, if there's a specific question, you can type grant index and it displays the whole knowledge database. But also it's really helpful to follow, product updates, because the Web of Science does receive updates roughly, twice a month, and we document them all here. You go here, there's always a nice summary with links and screenshots, of what that update is. So it's a really good way to follow everything that we add. So back to the grants index, so I'm going to select it. So now you see, I'm searching there. Another way of searching it, that is also very widely used, when you are conducting a screening search, you're doing an initial search to see what's out there. You can search it by also searching on databases, and then you can refine. But if your focus is, let's see what's available in the funding landscape, what has been available, in the past in the funding landscape, so that I can better determine what to expect, or if my project or topic is likely to continue to receive to attract funding dollars, then this is where you want to be starting. I did show you earlier on a slide, the metadata as it was showing on a record. Now let's take a quick look at the metadata that you're going to use to search. So here I am on a simple search, the fielded search. Bear in mind that this also has an advanced search. I'm going to show you that too. But I just continue here with the fielded search. And so see, you can search by topic, title, grant number, year, principal investigator, which is really important. I know that this was one of the one of the questions. And then when you go, you go further down here, you have grant status, type, the address that's associated. That would be the address associated with the primary investigator, so the affiliation of the primary investigator. So if the primary investigator is affiliated, we say with Oxford, that's the address that's going to be there, and then the accession number. In terms of yes data, so let's just go and run a search, because then I can actually show the latest data on here. Let's just imagine, that we are looking at, for example, that we're looking at previous awarded grant, around Parkinson. I'm just going to simply type Parkinson, I can type disease, but I just keep it nice and simple. I'm going to put in the topic. I'm not going to put a date range, so we're going to retrieve everything that is available. And then, so I think that I saw your message in the chat of when it was updated. Actually, thank you for your good eye of spotting that, because this has continued to be updated even this year. So I think that, I don't know why the website is displaying in the last update was 2023. That also wouldn't even make sense because we launched it this year. So so I'm gonna actually let them know. I'm gonna let them know to update that in the website. When what we see here, just for me having searched, yeah, no, absolutely no problem, is 152 here, grant year, you see 2024 were granted this year. So same look and feel of Web of Science, but so what could I do now? So I'm learning that there are over 33,000 awarded grants for Parkinson's disease. If I use the filters on the left-hand side, those are always quick filters that help you characterize the information that you see in the screen, because you're not going to have time, to read 33,000 documents, so you're going to want to filter. But this is already giving me a really good idea in terms of summarizing this data, this result set, right? I think namely the most important things that really stands out to me is that these results, have generated 26,000 associated publications. So even without even clicking into anything, I can already retrieve, without complicated filtering, I can search for data that was published as a result of a grant, just by directly searching a topic with one word, in this index. But then as I'm clicking through the filters, I'm seeing, if I go and see all, here you get a nice distribution of the history, how far back, these award grants go. So see the first one was awarded here. We see 1973, the last 152, this year. So if I am trying to determine, is it worth it for, say, me and my team, to submit a grant proposal to a funding agency on Parkinson? Is this continuing to be funded? Then, we can look at different numbers, but definitely the most obvious numbers that I would suggest looking at is how many awarded grants, have occurred for this area of research every year. And I'm seeing that, okay, there was a bit more in, 2020, 2019, but if you, up until 2022, there was a steady, an almost growing steady number, it seems to have slowed down in the past couple of years, so, and with 2024 being still underway, so that could be something to look at, and say, well, maybe are they looking at something specific within Parkinson's? This is why this data is helpful. And obviously, I'm not an expert in Parkinson, but my point here that I'm trying to make is that looking at historical data is really, really helpful to help determine what you can expect. You can then here look at the top, principal investigators. Remember, these are all the top 5. You're going to see everything. Funding agencies. So we know that there's been a lot of funding here. We know that tens of thousands of papers, have originated as a result of the grants, but who were the funding agencies? So we see here is different offices at the NIH, as expected. Here it's all sorted, by the way, by count. If you prefer, you wanted to sort by alphabetical order, remember that you can do that. You just click, it shows you alphabetical, and that will change it. If you have a really, really long list and you go, oh, I wonder if I'm thinking about applying to that funder, so I wonder if it's in this list, you can go here, you can type the name. I could just say, like, type, hey, European Commission, there you go. And it is, so that tells me, oh yeah, okay, so they are part of this list of funders. Great. Affiliation, as we said, that's the affiliation that matches the address of the principal investigators. So you see here the top 5 schools that have had, here awarded grants. So again, very helpful information to then maybe go and rerun a second search on the Web of Science, directly. So not grants, but Web of Science records, and pull their body of work, even in Parkinson, and just see, what they've published so far, in the topic. And then countries and region, that's also really helpful. We said, the data from the grant index is global. There are more than 15 countries for which, there is data. I know here I'm seeing the majority come from the US, but if I expand, this is pretty much distribution of these awarded grants, across these countries. And then lastly here, grant status. Is it closed? Is it still active? I mean, there are some that, may still be active, but it's not, they're not, it's not new funding, it's still, it had a beginning and an end date, and maybe those that started in 2020, beginning of the year 2024, they may still be active, but it doesn't mean that it's not open funding, up for bid, so that's what we mean there. And then finally, grant type. I think that's quite important to also, we always get a lot of questions about the grant type because people are just thinking, so what do you mean with grant? Is it to fund, a research project? What is it? Is it just, open to academia? What about nonprofit? Do you have to be in a specific career stage to be able to apply? So of course, the answers to all these questions, they come from the grant itself, and here we are looking at awarded grants, that information would have been included in the document by the funder, but you can still search and look at it because that is part of the metadata that is in there. So here, you see that for the top 5 types of these awarded grants, they were either single year grants, then followed by research grants, studentship as well. I'm looking at, continuing grants. Sometimes you also have things that are sometimes not expected. Like you can search for grants that are travel funding. Where a funder has awarded travel funding, for research to perhaps attend a conference. People that were presenting, a poster, making a poster presentation. So that can really be, it can get really, really granular. And it's just really interesting. Also, while you're exploring a topic, remember, we are looking at Parkinson previously awarded data to see all that was available and has been made available, vouchers, and of course, we could look and then take a look at, what were these vouchers, so you just select and you're fine, or you can exclude. But the point I'm making is, there's a lot of granularity and a lot of really helpful information that we felt, didn't just need to stay on PivotRP, but because, that is our platform too, we wanted to connect, and put straight into Web of Science so that you can go to the one place, and combine it, join the dots, and combine it with your literature search. So let's take a little step further because I want to go back to here to my results set. So here I recapping what I just did, I ran my search and I was just consulting the filters to characterize and get an idea who, what, where, and when, in my 33,000 results, who are the top funders, what country were they in, what was the, who were the, the top 5 principal investigator and so on. So then let's talk about associated publications, because that's really, really important, because that is the whole purpose of us wanting to include awarded grants on this platform. So as you see, there's 2 ways that you can actually, review, and digest and interact with information that is associated publication. You can either, instead of looking at a single record, you can do it for the whole results set by selecting this. Because if you do this, we're going to do that right now, it says 26,000. I'm going to go and refine. There you go. And then for these, here I have parsed out the 26,000 awarded grant records that have associated publication. Not every grant is going to result in publications. Some will, but some also won't. Typically they do. In fact, from 33, we had 26 of them. That's a very high percentage, but not all of them will. So if the focus is what's associated, yeah, let's use this filter and you bring them up. And then again, because we still have a lot of results, you may sub-search, you can go in here, and you can maybe add a row and, further search. Or what I would also recommend is going to Analyze, because that applies, again, the same way that it applies everywhere else on the platform. But the beauty here is that you can go and, use the Analyze, not just to get a visual view of an answer that you're looking for in the data. So here I'm basically interrogating the data and saying to the data, hey, I want to, take a look at, the top funding agencies here. Because I'm working on a similar project, and I'm going to go and apply to, I want to know who I should submit the grant to, or who I should explore, to see if they have open grants. So I'm going to sort by funding agencies, and I'm looking at past data. And so this is also can help you not just get a view for you to then download, and include into say a report or an email, but this can also serve as a filter. So if I decide here, okay, maybe I want to see a bit more, you can add the number of results, you can expand that, but then say I'm interested in here, the National Institute of Mental Health. Here, there's these $13.99, you go on view records, and that will also work as a filter. Yes, Amber, the recording will be available after this, absolutely. We'll host it on a Vidyard, and then it'll be sent to you with also a PDF version of the slides. Yes. So we have filtered, and so now, we have less results, so let's go and see the metadata. So see, the metadata has what we're seeing on a screenshot, except that where the authors have, made keywords available, these are also indexed and hyperlinked. So again, you can go and find more records here. And again, this is still, what I'm still looking here, this is still a grant record, right? It says this record is from the grant index. However, I'm learning who the author, principal investigator is. I'm learning the institution here, the grant number, I can see more data. So this was published in the accession number. And the beauty is the associated publications. So boom, I'm going to click on 16. This shows them to me right here. So already I can look at them, scroll them, and say, okay, is this the area that I'm interested in? Let's pretend, just in the interest of time, that I'm interested in this data set. Then I'm going to go and instead of trying to print it, screenshot it, that it wouldn't really come out in the right formatting. If you want to extract it, you can. But I would add this extra step, meaning that, if you want to add the grant record to your MARC list, then you do that, right? If what you're trying to export is the grant data here, then you can add it to your MARC list, or you can do export, and then you have your usual formats, that you can export in. But if what you're after are the associated publication, then I would say move them into your result set, because then this is a lot easier. And then once they are in a result set, then you can export them. You can also do a citation report, which could also be interesting, because then you can see, okay, if this is the pool of data that in the past was successful in obtaining that grant, and because of that grant, this is how they evolve those ideas, they continue to work, then not only what were these documents, we already know is D16, but then you could also, when you do a citation report, so this is really leverage the inner Web of Science functionality, the analytical data. This is not, added because of the grant information. Here, I'm simply using the Web of Science tools over the data that I've extracted thanks to the grant index, and I'm drawing some conclusion. And one of the examples would be, now that I've identified what body of work was produced as a result of that one grant I was looking at, then you can also gauge, when they were published, see they were published here. And then, but this is interesting. Look, so in 2018, there were 6 publications. But then what's interesting is, if you look at the navy, the dark blue color here, they're getting cited more and more as the year go on, with a peak that was, what was the peak? The peak was in 2022. So very, very interesting, to again help you really look at the landscape, from multiple angles, because we all need all the help that we can get when it comes to writing a grant proposal, because unfortunately it's really, really difficult. and everybody's competing for the same funds. So it's great to be able to look at the data from different angle. So the question is, what is the source? So the source is what is stated on the publication. So if I go back into the results, so these are, let's go and open one, so here. So I think is your question, how did we find out that that particular grant that I was looking at has been followed by this publication, has triggered these publications? Well, for these, okay, yeah, thank you. I just wanted to check that I understood your question correctly. So yeah, so you'll simply see it because we see that information from the paper itself. When you actually scroll down, the last set of data on the paper already, so we already have this information in Web of Science. It shows you the funding agency and it shows you the grant number. So basically, we already have this in Web of Science. So that's how we are able to say, okay, this was generated because of that grant number. And the one that I was just showing you, that I worked my way backward. Remember, I was looking at the NIH, the mental health part of the NIH. And from there, I saw that this was an associated publication. But at the bottom of this publication, you see, the funding agency there. So that is the source.